Scarlet Guard, which is a group of volunteer community members, many of them veterans, who present the colors of events.
I know. It's giving me so bad. One day that could be. I know.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. I want to thank the Scarlet Guard for being here for the presentation of the colors. If you would please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Present. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Order. So it's an honor to be with all of you this morning, and I also want to thank Riverside Cemetery for their hospitality and helping make this event possible and as special as it is. It's great to gather as we enter Memorial Day weekend for a special memorial, and that is for Horace Artis. And we'll hear more about Horace Artis as the program proceeds. But we had the good pleasure of connecting with Catherine now a couple of years ago, and who's a descendant of Horace Artis. And we talked about the role that he played in this community and the importance of recognizing our community's history, the aspects of our community's history that make us proud, and the aspects of our history that we don't want to be. And so today, as we honor Horace Artis and his family, we do so with the hope that as a community we can continue to learn and grow and build a stronger community together, and that we always remember the commitment and sacrifices of the people who come before us. And that is also what Memorial Day is all about, recognizing the service and commitment and the sacrifices that have been made to make this country the place that it is, and a place that we aspire for it to be. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dustin Mack from the History Museum at the Past, who's going to share a little bit about the history of Horace Artis. Welcome, Dustin. Hurry. So Horace Artis made history. He fought for freedom in his lifetime, and he's an example that continues to have an impact on our community today. Horace was born in Virginia about 1840. His parents were slaves, which meant that by birth he was also a slave, considered property by law. He lived 24 years as a slave, working for someone else's profit. The laws of our country and violence perpetuated chattel slavery, but that did not stop Horace's capacity to love or his desire for freedom. As a young man, Horace met Bercina, and the two quickly fell in love. Bercina was enslaved on a nearby plantation, but under the cover of darkness, she would escape her cabin and run off to meet Horace. In 1860, the couple eluded their owner's long night to secretly wed. But there was no honeymoon for the young couple. They remained in bondage in separate locations. And the threat of physical violence and the fear of being sold and permanently separated were a constant in their lives. Bercina's back, even in old age, bore the scars of a slave driver's lash. Her arms and his shoulders were covered with intersecting scars. An overseer had intentionally whipped her in this crossing pattern to intensify the pain. Bercina witnessed her uncle being lashed to the point of unconsciousness for misunderstanding the directions on how to hook up a carriage. She watched as her Aunt Ella was forced to eat 12 biscuits, drink a half-gallon of coffee, and then suffer a beating because her master did not like the breakfast that she had prepared for her. Bercina saw her cousin whipped almost to death for the crime of learning to read and to write. And Bercina experienced the pain and the anguish of watching her own mother and young sister being sold away to another planter. Scenes like this would have been common for Horace as well. Yet the country was changing. Northern states, led by abolitionists, increasingly questioned the institution of slavery and the dehumanization of black Americans that it was intended to justify. Free and enslaved blacks forced white Americans to confront the brutality of the system and the undeniable humanity of the oppressed. Fearing the loss of their supposed right to own human beings, Southern states seceded from the United States in 1860 following the election of Abraham Lincoln. The Civil War ensued. The Confederacy wrote slavery and white supremacy into its founding documents, and the Union fought back to preserve the country. But with time, the Union's objective broadened. The North rallied to end the horrors of slavery entirely. When Horace Artis got his chance to fight for freedom, he was ready. After the Union Army advanced in Virginia and freed him from bondage, Horace joined their ranks. In 1864, he enlisted in the 31st U.S. Colored Infantry and saw significant combat. Private Artis fought to end oppression. He fought to end injustice. He fought to fulfill the American promise that all men are created equal. On April 9th, 1865, Private Artis stood at attention outside Appomattox Courthouse as General Robert E. Lee surrendered, essentially ending the Civil War. Can you imagine the emotions that Private Artis must have been feeling in that moment? The violence of slavery and the horrors of war had just ended, and a whole world of possibility lay in front of him. After being discharged, Horace and Bercina chose to exercise their newfound freedom here in Allegheny County. First on a farm in Shiocton, and then in Appleton. They could have gone anywhere, right? They could have done anything, but they chose to make their lives here in this community, to work, to raise children, to become a part of this place. Despite having several children, only one survived, a daughter named Nettie. Nettie was a tremendous student and public speaker. She graduated from Ryan High School in 1901. And that year, Miss Nettie Artis even addressed the annual meeting of the Allegheny County Pioneer Association. Miss Artis could never have imagined that organization would eventually become the History Museum at the castle, and that museum would partner with African Heritage Inc. and a team of researchers would uncover her family's history and use it to educate tens of thousands of people, both locally and across the country. In 2014, the portrait of Private Horace Artis became the logo of a novel exhibition titled A Stone of Hope. The exhibit documents the Artis family history, and it's also honest about the sad truth that we, as a community, have not always lived up to the hopes and dreams that Horace and Bercina invested in us. The exhibit is a reconciliation of our past, and it's also a challenge for the type of future that we want to create. We're here today to honor Horace and Bercina and the Artis family, and we do that by remembering their lives as part of our history. But just as importantly, we can honor Horace and Bercina by continuing their fight. Faced with overwhelming odds, they strove for freedom, equality, and justice in our nation and in our community. They're models to emulate in uncertain times. For that, we owe them our gratitude, our efforts, and our respect. Thank you, Dr. Mack. Appreciate the words. Next, I want to welcome Dr. Sabrina Robbins on behalf of African Heritage Incorporated and the Stone Hope Committee to share a few words.
As they say in church, I won't be long. Today, we honor a man whose name was almost lost to time, but whose legacy refused to be forgotten. I'm here representing African Heritage Inc. and the Stone of Hope research team. I'd just like a chance to acknowledge members of our team that are here, Dr. Bola Delano Oriero and Ms. Kathy Flores, and I'll just say Ms. Yvette Dunlap is representing Ron Dunlap as members of the team. Horace Artis was our first discovery when we began documenting the erased families of the Fox cities. And what a profound gift that was. To Horace Artis, I say thank you. Thank you for your courage from escaping slavery to wearing Union blue, from witnessing Lee's surrender to bringing freedom to Texas on the first Juneteenth. Thank you for choosing Appleton, for believing in its promise, even when it didn't always believe in you. Thank you for building a life here with Miss Bercina and raising your children in this community. To the Artis family descendants, thank you for sharing your ancestor with us and preserving his memory through generations. Your presence here today completes a circle that was broken for far too long. To my Stone of Hope colleagues and the city of Appleton, thank you. Artis Alley and this ceremony say with actions that Horace and Bercina Artis matter. That their story is Appleton's story. That remembering is the first step towards healing. What does Horace Artis mean? He means that no one's contribution should be erased. He means that courage takes many forms in battle, in daily life, and in simply insisting on your right to belong. He means that truth, once uncovered, has the power to transform communities. And I also would like to acknowledge the heads of the research team from a historical standpoint, represents members from Alpha, Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, myself as the chair. We have members and head of the research team, members of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, as acknowledged by Dr. Bola Delano Oriero and Laura, and also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, that's Ron Dunlap, and we do have a representative member from the sorority here. Thank you to the members of D9 for continuing to make historical impacts. Private artists, you've always been part of Appleton's story. Today, Appleton acknowledges that truth. We remember, we honor, and we thank you.
Okay.
And then on behalf of African Heritage, we wanted to present you with flowers and in memory and truth. Thank you.
join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now I'd like to offer the podium to Catherine to say a few words.
Morning.
Morning. Wonderful to be back here again. I wanted to have the opportunity to introduce myself formally. I am Catherine Artis Fox Cunningham. And my dad gave me part of his name. His name was William Captain Artis Fox. So the name has always been in our family. And today I am the great granddaughter of Horace and Bercina Fox, or Bercina Artis. And I wanted to acknowledge who I am in relation to these wonderful people that we're honoring today. I have with me today my daughter, Camila Nichols, who is a great granddaughter of Horace and Bercina. And then I have also her daughter, Malia Nichols, who is a great granddaughter of Horace and Bercina. And then I have my son's son, who is Zane Artis Turner.
Oh,
So his name,
that
I
time.
wanted him to say his name. So he is here, they are here, and we are fourth generation today. So this name will never leave our family if I have anything to do with it. I know people are giving their kids all kinds of names. We're trying to keep the history in the family. I just want to say that I thank you, I knew that my dad was born in Beloit, Wisconsin, and I knew that his mother was born in Wisconsin, but I wasn't sure of the details. But finding the marker picture online, I was able to connect with the History Museum because that's who had taken the picture. And I immediately contacted Nick Hoffman, I believe, and asked him about the picture. And he told me about a Stone of Hope exhibit that had been done in collaboration with the Appleton Heritage Inc. And I was able to understand that not only was there a marker and a grave site for my family in Appleton, but there was a whole exhibit. So that made me even more curious to find out more and do the pilgrimage that I did a couple of years ago to come and see the exhibit. I feel very honored that you would take the time to do this for my family. I'm more than elated. In doing my research, as you've already been told, how teenagers escaped their enslavement and ventured out into Washington, D.C., the big city, after being enslaved in a very small place as teenagers. My first uncle was born in Washington, D.C., but my grandfather was so moved to join the military, to go back and fight in the same area that he had been enslaved in. That took courage. And to leave his wife and young baby son to do that. In my research, I found that it wasn't easy. My great-great-grandmother, Bercina, saw help through the Freedmen's Bureau during that time. I found records where she was given some funds to keep them going during that time. And then looking at my grandfather's military records, I'm finding that not only was he at Appomattox when the surrender happened that gave freedom to everyone who was enslaved, but he was one of the 31 infantry regiment that was sent from Virginia to Texas to let the enslaved people in Texas know that they had actually been free. So he was there on Juneteenth in Texas. Amazing. Someone from a Virginia plantation all the way down to Texas, from Texas to New Orleans, from New Orleans to Connecticut where he was discharged, to New York and back to his wife and baby in D.C. And to end up in Albemarle County. And to have survived a war where 752,000 men and women were killed. Men and women who rank above all of the wars that we've had in the United States. That is the most casualties, fatalities of any war that we've ever had put together. So we took every war that we've had, but he survived. I know why he survived. So I can beat him. So it's just amazing. They did have a very deep love of country, a very deep love of faith in God, and ended up from Washington, D.C. to this county to make their family whole again. And looking at the research, 9 children they had, but by the time that they died, only one child did they have that had survived all of this. But I wanted to let you know that there's so much more to tell. But my great-grandparents encouraged my grandmother to pursue her education. And as you have already heard, she did do that in a very fine way.
Yes.
Not only during high school, but she went on to get education after high school and became an elocutionist. She went to school in Oshkosh,
Okay.
Wisconsin, to get her education.
They still
Teachers.
have that program, speech therapy.
She
Yeah.
came back to Appleton and was participating in many ceremonies, events, entertainment activities. When she married my grandfather, George Fox, he was a minister and a journalist. There's much to tell about him. He even wrote, he was a musician, he wrote one of the Wisconsin State Fair songs that was published. He has published music.
Wow.
But I can just, tell you there's more to say and more to know, but I don't want to belabor it. But by these two enslaved people,
It should be a movie. It should be. Yeah.
encourage their daughter for education, to let her soar, even though they could not read or write. That is a testament to who they were. I won't belabor the point. There's too much to tell. And I know we have no time to do it. So I just want to say again, I appreciate you. Thank you for having us here. And I thank my grandchildren and my daughter for traveling with me to this.